I was mocked for my humble lunch of bread and water until a billionaire changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The cafeteria echoed with laughter, the sound sharp and biting. I could barely swallow my bite of crusty bread. It felt like a rock in my throat. I glanced around, heart racing. Faces smirked, eyes gleamed with scorn. My trembling hands clutched the plastic tray. Water. Just water. While everyone else feasted on gourmet meals, I was invisible, a ghost hiding beneath layers of shame. My world spun. The clanging of trays, the aroma of fries and burgers made my stomach twist. I could almost feel their disdain sharpen like daggers. What a loser. Someone jeered, a chorus followed. My cheeks burned as I shrank deeper into my seat. It was the routine, the daily ritual of being the outcast. Money. It seemed to define us all. They had everything, I had nothing but these meager rations. My pride gnawed at me harder than hunger. How did I end up here? My dad lost his job last summer. The bills piled up. Food was scarce. Mom did her best. I saw her every morning, the way she hustled to make ends meet. A job after another. Her tired eyes glistened, but she never let me see her tears. I wanted to help her, to take the weight off her shoulders. If only I could find a way. And then, as my mind spun in despair, a shadow fell over my meal. I dared to look up, there he was. A man dressed in a tailored suit, a striking figure that radiated power. His presence silenced the laughter. Everyone turned. The billionaire. His face was carved from stone, but his eyes. They held secrets. I felt my heart race, a drum in my chest. I was paralyzed. What did he want? My breath hitched as he surveyed the room, the laughter fading into uncertainty. This felt surreal, like a movie unraveling before my very eyes. Why is this child eating alone? He suddenly asked, his voice a low rumble. The room fell silent. His hand motioned to me, a curious smile breaking across his lips. I was being singled out, this odd mix of embarrassment and intrigue swirling within me. Come here, he said. I hesitated, frozen. In that moment, everything changed. My mind buzzed with questions. What was a billionaire doing here? Why was he interested in me? I could feel the weight of their gazes back on me, a silent judgment crashing around me like tidal waves. Instinctively, I clenched my hands, a fight or flight instinct battling within me. I took a breath, stepped forward slightly, unsure of my next move. What would happen if I said yes? Would this be my chance, or would I be crushed anew? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. My feet felt heavy as I took slow, tentative steps toward the billionaire. Each breath was a struggle against the tide of anxiety. The cafeteria loomed like an arena filled with judgmental spectators. Would this be the moment that would lift me from obscurity or a deeper plunge into ridicule? He waited, his expression steady, almost gentle. Hi, I managed to whisper, my voice shaky. A knot twisted in my stomach. I could sense the eyes of my classmates dissecting every move, every syllable. They watched, enraptured by the spectacle. My name is Charles, he said, extending his hand. What's yours? The handshake felt strangely comforting, his grip firm yet oddly reassuring. I almost forgot the stares, lost in the warmth of connection. I've been observing you here. You seem like someone with untapped potential. His words struck me like a beam of sunlight breaking through a storm cloud. For a brief moment, the laughter faded, replaced by a glimmer of hope. I was more than just a nameless face, an outcast in a world of privilege. You've been resilient in the face of adversity. That's worth acknowledging, he continued, his voice steady. As he spoke, I noticed a flicker of kindness in his eyes, a gentle reminder that maybe my existence could matter after all, but why me? The question spilled out before I could stop it. There are so many others. He cut me off with a soft chuckle, shaking his head. Sometimes, it takes just one person to ignite change in another. Before I could respond, he leaned closer. How about lunch together? I'd love to hear your story. The challenge unfolded like a tender blossom. Against all odds, I felt a sense of courage warm my chest. Maybe this was an opportunity to not only share my burden but perhaps even to change the narrative written around me. With hesitant hope, I nodded. Together we moved to the long table in the dining hall. I felt the weight of every eye upon us. As we settled onto the seats, the whispers swept through like waves crashing onto the shore. A snicker here, a muttered insult there. My heart raced, but I focused on Charles, intent on keeping my composure. Your lunch looks delicious, he remarked, his smile playful. I laughed nervously, clutching my bread and water like a lifeline. It's a classic, I replied, more to mask my embarrassment than to maintain the conversation. Yet, this small exchange presented a flicker of warmth amidst the coldness of the room. There was something undeniably comforting about Charles. His laughter felt real, his words sincere. He asked questions about my life, and I found myself unveiling pieces of my stormy dad's struggles, my mom's tireless hustle for a few pennies. Each confession felt cathartic, a long-held weight shedding from my shoulders, and then I saw her, the girl who had been the ringleader of the jeering that day. Sarah, with her caramel curls and piercing blue eyes, approached us, her gait confident yet tinged with an air of uncertainty. My heart sank, dread pooling in my stomach. What do you want? I snapped, my voice stronger than I meant it to be. Just curious, she said, biting her lip, looking almost guilty beneath the scrutiny of her friends still lingering nearby. Is it true that you're talking to him? Yes, I replied defiantly. The courage that swelled within me surprised even myself. Sarah's brow furrowed, and for a tense moment, I expected her to launch into a rightful barrage of insults. Instead, she took a step closer, barely containing her nervous energy. I didn't mean to, make fun of you. I just didn't know. Charles turned to her, his expression kind but firm. It's important to understand that everyone carries a story. Sometimes, the plot twists are hidden from sight. Her eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of vulnerability reflected back at me. I was just trying to fit in, she admitted, her voice shaky. Something shifted, a crack in the wall between our worlds. As she spoke, I felt conflicted. Was I meant to extend the olive branch? Could I find it in my heart to forgive the girl who had once made me feel so small? My mind raced, grappling with the tangled web of emotions. Had I the capacity for forgiveness? But then Charles' next words wedged themselves into my thoughts like a dagger. Life presents us with chances, Sarah. It's up to us to seize them. In that moment, the weight of the cafeteria lifted slightly, revealing the glimmering possibilities of an unexpected alliance, but just as a tentative understanding began to settle, an ominous figure loomed at the entrance, the principal, her fierce gaze sweeping over us. The atmosphere shifted, tension tightening in the air. Charles. We need to speak. Now, she beckoned, her tone laced with urgency. As he stood, he gave me a reassuring nod. Don't go anywhere, we'll continue our conversation in a minute. But as he walked towards the principal, my heart sank. This fleeting moment of genuine connection felt like it was slipping away like grains of sand through my fingers. Yet, what happened next shattered any remnants of calm. I overheard snippets of their conversation, the principal's voice raised like an alarm. You have no idea what you're walking into. This could ruin everything. The sudden realization hit me like a freight train. What was he hiding? What ramifications loomed over him, threatening to snuff out the light he had inched into my world? An anxious knot twisted deep inside me. I was left in the cafeteria, alone again, the walls closing in like a suffocating shroud. It was the same isolation, just cloaked in a false sense of hope. And as I watched him in quiet desperation, I realized, nothing would ever be the same again. A gust of wind rattled the cafeteria door, leaving an unsettling silence in its wake. What lay beyond the veil of kindness and opportunity? My heart raced with uncertainty, while an impending storm brewed just out of sight, ready to engulf us all. The cafeteria felt like a cage, the air thick with unsaid words and unrelenting tension. I sat rigid, all too aware of the whispers curling around me like a smoke screen. My gaze flickered toward the entrance, where Charles had disappeared with the principal, shadows of their conversation lingering in my mind like dark clouds. My heart thumped heavy in my chest, the sweetness of reconnecting with him now tainted by a sense of dread. As the minutes dragged on like hours, Sarah lingered nearby, her presence strange yet oddly comforting. Some part of me wanted to retreat into a wall of silence, to escape the piercing gazes of my peers, yet another part, a burgeoning sense of defiance, wanted to confront the tangled relationships that bound us. "Do you want to sit?" I asked her, surprising even myself with the offer. Attempting to mask her tension with bravado, she scooted onto the bench across from me. "I won't bite, I promise," she muttered, her voice small and apologetic. I couldn't help but chuckle weakly, but beneath that humor, I felt the vulnerability slip through the cracks of my sentiment. "I wasn't angry, just lost. Why did you do it?" I motioned toward the table where her friend still loitered, eyes darting between us. "What made you think it was okay to laugh?" The question echoed loudly, a challenge wrapped in uncertainty. She looked down, tracing her finger along the wooden grain of the table. "I was just trying to fit in. It was easier to laugh at others than to risk being laughed at myself." A silence stretched between us, thick with understanding and regret. The truth lay heavy in the open space of our shared reality. "That I understand that feeling," I admitted, my voice softening. "I've felt it for so long, like I was a shadow in everyone's life." I looked into her eyes, searching for the remnants of that girl who had mocked me, hoping to find an echo of solidarity. "Have you ever wanted to break out of it?" "I'm scared," she whispered, the pain on her face raw and palpable. "I want so badly to be real, but I don't even know where to start." As her words tumbled out, a veil shifted. In that fleeting moment, we were no longer adversaries, we were simply two people, drifting in the same turbulent sea, lost, searching for a lighthouse of acceptance. Suddenly, a flurry of voices erupted beyond our intimate bubble. Charles was back, his face shadowed in concern. The jovial demeanor he displayed earlier was now gone, replaced by something anchored in urgency. "I need a moment, Claire," he said, his tone a stark contrast to the man I had just been opening up to. I nodded, but an inexplicable tug at my heart held me back. "What's wrong?" Fire flickered in my chest, driven by an instinctive need to protect this fragile connection we had just started building. He hesitated, glancing around the room as if weighing his options. "There are some things happening that might change everything," he whispered. The candor in his tone made the hair on the back of my neck prickle. "I just need to figure things out." "Like what?" I pressed, unwilling to let go. He shook his head vaguely, pain etching deeper lines across his brow. "Not here," he insisted, glancing nervously toward the principal who stood surveying the room, pointing at Charles like a general preparing to charge into battle. "I wish I could explain, but I need you to trust me." "Trust," I echoed, the word gyrating heavily in the air. "How can I trust you when you're wrapped in secrets?" And even as the words left my lips, I questioned myself. Was I being fair? Was I condemning him for the very thing that once offered me solace? Before he could respond, the principal snapped her fingers, and I felt the room freeze. "Charles, now. You're needed in the office. This is serious." The weight of authority in her words left no room for argument. As he stood to leave, the moment stretched like a taut wire threatening to snap. I didn't want to be left behind, not when it felt like something greater was on the brink of unraveling. "Charles," I said, desperation tinging my voice. "Promise me you'll come back." His eyes met mine, vulnerability woven into the firmness of his gaze. "For you, I will," he vowed, a flicker of determination sparking between us as he turned toward the door, each step echoing with uncertainty. The moment he stepped into the hallway, an icy grip of fear sank into my stomach, knotting tighter with each heartbeat. Would he return? Would whatever he was facing bleed into my existence? My gaze shifted toward Sarah, who watched the scene unfold with wide eyes, an unspoken question hanging heavily between us. "Is everything okay?" she finally asked, sincerity lacing her tone. "I don't know," I confessed, the admission tasting bitter on my tongue. "What if he doesn't come back?" Or my words trailed off, lost amid a whirlwind of frightening possibilities. Just then, the cafeteria door swung open with a deep creak, and my breath caught in my throat. But it wasn't Charles who stood there, it was someone else, a woman dressed in a crisp suit, her eyes scanning the room with alarming intensity, lips pursed in barely concealed contempt. With a sudden clarity, I realized that whatever storm was brewing around Charles was bound to engulf me, too. And in that instant, fear morphed into resolve. I would not be a passive observer in my own life any longer. If Charles was tangled in something dark and uncertain, then I had no choice but to face it head-on. I didn't escape ridicule just to slide back into silence. My heart raced violently as I caught a glimpse of that woman's steely gaze land on me with all the unyielding force of a thunderclap. She broke through the cacophony of the cafeteria with a single intention. "We need to talk," she declared, striding toward my table as the grip of dread overtook me once more. With each step she took, the world around me began to collapse inward, trapping me in a web spun of intrigue, fear, and the uncertainty of what was next. I understood, in that moment, my life was shifting once again, and I might have to choose sides in a battle I didn't yet comprehend. What lay beneath her cool, composed exterior felt more like quicksand than promises of salvation. I was no longer just waiting for Charles to return. I was about to dive deep into a mystery that could alter the course of my life forever. The cafeteria buzzed with a mix of curious glances and hushed murmurs as the woman approached. It felt as if the very air shifted, growing heavier with anticipation. I could see her sharp features reflecting a fierce determination that sent shivers down my spine. Her confidence carved a path through the clamor, and I wondered fleetingly if she was the answer I had been looking for or a new source of dread. "Who are you?" I managed, my voice trembling slightly in contrast to her imposing presence. "Veronica Sinclair," she said coolly, dropping into the seat next to mine as all conversations momentarily paused. "And you are Claire. Is that supposed to mean something to me?" I asked, a flicker of bravado emerging even as my heart hammered in my chest. "Let's just say, Claire, I come bearing some significant news about Charles," she replied, her tone devoid of tenderness. The mention of his name fueled both my anger and concern. "What do you mean? Is he hurt?" "Not yet," she said, a hint of a smirk forming at the corner of her mouth. "But he's in deeper than you realize. And if he has a choice, I suspect he won't be coming back here at all." Each word landed like a punch, and it felt as if the ground beneath me was eroding. I glanced at Sarah, who was all wide eyes and tense shoulders, mirroring my turmoil. "What do you know about him?" I pressed, determined not to let her intimidate me. "Enough," she replied dismissively. "Charles has been wrapped up in something unconventional. I need you to tell me everything you know about him. And I mean everything. This could be very important." A pulse of fear flickered through me. I had only just begun to unravel the truth about Charles myself. How could I share it with a stranger, especially one who seemed to spectate from a distance, savoring our pain? "Why should I trust you?" I said, hugging my arms, a protective instinct kicking in. "Trust? You should know by now, in this world, it's often a commodity." Her eyes hardened. "But I can help you. Or I can make things much worse for both of you." The choice is yours. The starkness of her ultimatum tightened in my chest. I had spent too long shying away from confrontation, perhaps this was a chance to reshape my narrative. What are you really after? I demanded, gathering whatever strength I found in my resolve. Do you want to use me against him? Hardly, she responded, annoyance flickering in her eyes. But there are forces at play here that you don't yet comprehend, forces that will try to manipulate you as well. Before I could respond, she leaned closer, her voice a low murmur just for me, intimate yet laced with sharp warning. Charles is not just your ordinary boy. He's wrapped in a web of responsibility that could drown both of you unless you can navigate it wisely. That I wanted to protest, to deny everything she had said, but the urgency in her tone sparked a nagging curiosity within me. What do you mean? I pressed, my voice trembling but determined. What responsibilities? Let's just say, he's connected to a world you probably have never dreamed of: wealth, power, and danger. And for good or ill, those worlds tend to collide. If you want to save Heimer, help yourself, then you need to listen. This is bigger than your simple cafeteria dramas. Her words were laced with an almost intoxicating curiosity, yet I sensed the threat behind them, veiled in a fabric of allure. As she spoke, I couldn't help but recall all those whispers that persisted in school, hinting at a darkness I had underestimated. Just then, I spotted two figures enter the cafeteria. Charles and the principal came into view. The stern expression on her face echoed the heat of the moment. Had she brought him back to confront me? To expose the web of entanglement woven around us? My heart raced in anticipation, a mix of anxiety and longing surging through me. Veronica's gaze followed mine, and a smirk played on her lips. Here come your knight in shining armor, or perhaps your jester. You must decide quickly, Claire. Will you play the game or be left behind? I looked at Charles as he approached, his brow furrowed. Something in his posture made the earlier spark of defiance burst weakly within me, but I also felt the cold tendrils of doubt curling around my judgment. Had I unwittingly tied myself to something dangerous? Claire, Charles called, his concerned voice seeming to wade through the chaos, pulling me from my spiraling thoughts. Are you okay? I held his gaze, and in that brief connection, I felt the weight of everything: my choices, my fears, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead. But before I could respond, Veronica slid an envelope across the table, cutting through the moment. Make your choice before it's made for you, she said cryptically before standing and striding away, leaving a silence at the table thick with gravitas. The envelope felt like a lifeline and a noose, pressing against my fingertips with daunting weight. As I glanced back to Charles, I knew not only was the momentous wave of change crashing over us, but so was an irrevocable choice. Would I dare to dive into the depths of the unknown, or remain sheltered in the mundane, even at the cost of losing everything? I held the envelope up, the crumpled paper seeming to scorch my skin with secrets untold. And as the cafeteria erupted in the aftermath of Veronica's departure, I could sense the moment slipping beneath the waves of chaos, pulling both Charles and me into an uncertain future. So I made a decision, to open that envelope, unaware of just how far the tide would drag us down. The cafeteria buzz faded into a dizzying silence as I stared at the envelope, every heartbeat echoing louder than the chatter around me. Charles leaned closer, his eyes searched mine with a mix of concern and something else: curiosity, maybe? Or was it fear? Claire. What did she say to you? His voice was steady, but I could detect the tremor beneath the surface. I could only imagine what was swirling in his mind as he glanced between the envelope and my face. I swallowed hard, the weight of Veronica's words hanging heavily in my throat. She knows about you, I finally admitted, unable to shake off the chill creeping along my spine. She says you're wrapped up in something dangerous. He went rigid, and I hated that my admission sent fear into his posture. The warmth that once lived in his eyes seemed dimmed, as if the shadows from his past had crept back to envelop him. What else did she say? He pressed, the sharpness of his inquiry hinting at a vulnerability I could scarcely bear to confront. I hesitated, the intensity of his gaze anchoring me even as I grappled with my own doubts. She said you're involved in a world of wealth and power, that I need to be careful, I murmured, each word weighing down on my soul. This was not how I imagined our time together, caught in a web of shadows, suspicion, and fear. He exhaled slowly, and I could see the internal battle raging behind his calm facade. "Claire," the cafeteria doors swung open again, and a tall figure stepped inside. A man, impeccably dressed, his presence commanding. The whispers ricocheted off the cafeteria walls, curiosity shifting into a wave of apprehension. He looked perfectly at ease, gliding past students who were too shocked to resume their meals. As he stepped closer, I could read the intentions in the wrinkled skin around his eyes, dangerously sharp, like a hawk surveying its prey. My breaths quickened as he approached our table, his aura filled with authority that seemed to dim the spark of my defiance. "Charles," he said, the smoothness of his voice sending a jolt through me. "We need to talk." It wasn't a request, it was a demand, one that sent frost running through my veins. Charles looked torn between resistance and obligation, a tension I hadn't seen before rushing through him. I felt like an unwitting participant in a dance where neither lead nor follower could claim grace. "Jack, I'm not in the mood for this," Charles replied, a steely edge sharpening his voice. The dismissal hinted at a past I couldn't fully grasp, one that intertwined with Charla's secrets. Jack didn't flinch. "It's not exactly a mood you can afford to keep, my friend. You need to come with me. Now." My heart raced as I watched Charles grapple with the weight of Jack's words. I felt impotent, drowning in a sea of unknowns that threatened to pull me under. What power did this man wield over him? Despite my instinct to call out for Charles to say something, anything, I felt rooted in place. The envelope felt heavier than before, like it contained not just answers but the very fate of our connection. Charles turned towards me, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between us: fear, trust, and an urgency that simmered beneath the surface. "Claire, I'll be back. Just stay here, okay?" The plea in his eyes dug into me, intertwining with a rising fear I couldn't conceal. "Be careful," I whispered, my voice nearly lost in the commotion. He nodded, but even as Jack placed a hand on his shoulder, a deep sense of foreboding gripped me. They turned to leave, and as they did, I clutched the envelope tighter, the crinkled paper digging into my skin like a reminder of all I had at stake. As they exited, the cafeteria buzz returned, though this time it felt charged with something darker. Laughter floated past me, but it sounded hollow, a mechanical echo that faded into the backdrop of my thoughts. I was left behind with unanswered questions and an anxiety that twisted my stomach. What did we really know about Charles? What was hidden behind that charming smile and gentle eyes? And who exactly was Jack, this specter of authority that had just entered our lives, demanding allegiance and loyalty? I unfolded the envelope slowly, my pulse thrumming like a drum in my ears. The paper felt flimsy against my fingertips, carrying the weight of a truth that could either illuminate or engulf me. With trembling hands, I removed a letter, the script sharp and professional, delivering an unexpected shock that rippled through my veins. "Dear Claire," it began, the very formality of the address sending a chill through me. The words danced on the page, but what I read next felt like the ground collapsing beneath my feet. There were names, dates, and connections that led to a world I barely understood but sensed was encroaching deeper into my life. Charles had much more at risk than just his future. He was, inextricably, entangled in something boundless, a reality threatening to unfold like a dark flower, and then, with every heartbeat, I realized my very existence was woven into this narrative. In that moment, the cafeteria felt like a distant murmur, the chaos around me fading into oblivion as clarity emerged, an overwhelming desire to protect what might still be salvaged of our fragile connection. But as I finished reading, a realization washed over me, igniting a fear that surged through my veins like wildfire. In the depths of the letter, among the chaos of the words, lay one damning line that changed everything: "This decision could change the course of your life forever. Choose wisely." And just like that, I was poised at the precipice, staring into an abyss of uncertainty, grasping at the delicate threads of hope that still clung to my heart, caught between the past and a future that loomed just out of reach. That I snapped the envelope shut, a decision crystallizing in my chest, awaiting the moment I might have to uncover the truths echoing beyond these walls. The winds were shifting, and soon, the storm would erupt. All I had to do was wait for my heart to guide me through. The cafeteria shrieked with laughter and clamor, a cacophony that felt almost mocking in its levity. My empty table felt like an island, isolated by swirling tides of conversation and carefree exchanges. I stared at the crumpled envelope, its implications bouncing around in my mind, each one more harrowing than the last. Tentatively, I scanned the room for a semblance of comfort, but found only the faces of classmates, their youthful exuberance a stark contrast to the weight that settled over me like a storm cloud. Each smile I caught felt like an accusation against my creeping dread. What had I truly stumbled into with Charles? Was love worth sacrificing for someone shrouded in shadows? My thoughts were interrupted as a familiar figure entered the cafeteria. Olivia, my closest friend, made her way toward me, her signature confidence radiating like a warm beacon. Her hair bounced with every step, and the casual way she brushed off responses indicated she was blissfully unaware of the turmoil that churned inside me. "Hey, Claire. Look what I found," she chirped, brandishing a pink flyer with glitter letters. "Dance tomorrow. You have to come with me." "It'll be fun, sure," I replied, forcing a smile but knowing in my heart I wouldn't be able to focus on dance moves when my mind was entangled in a grim reality. She plopped down beside me, undeterred by my lack of enthusiasm. "Why so glum?" Her eyes narrowed, sensing my hesitation. It's complicated." I bit my lip, weighing the wisdom of unloading my worries onto her. It would be selfish to drag her into my chaos, but I knew she would notice the knots in my gut sooner or later. "Tell me," Olivia urged, her voice softening. "I can handle complicated." Reluctantly, I shared the barest details of the envelope, the names that swam like unsolved riddles, and the nagging fear that rattled deep in my chest. Olivia listened with unwavering focus, a supportive presence that made my burdens feel lighter. "That I can't let him get hurt," I confessed, my eyes downcast. "I don't want to be involved in whatever dangerous world he's wrapped up in, but I can't just walk away either. What if it pulls me in? What if I lose him?" "Your heart knows what's right, Claire." Olivia's fingers wrapped around mine, reassuring. "Look, we're in this together, okay? If you decide you want to figure things out, he'll be right here with you." Just as I was feeling the buoyancy of hope rise within me, the cafeteria doors swung open again, and I turned, my heart skipping a beat. A figure emerged. Jack. He was strikingly handsome, pale blue eyes piercing the crowd, and with him, he radiated a magnetic aura that drew whispers and stares alike. Yet, it was the glint of something sinister in his gaze that sent a tremor through me. Jack swept through the aisles with deliberate grace, a predator surveying his territory. I could feel the tension in the air, palpable and electric as he drew nearer. My veins turned cold as I recalled the weight of his presence when head called for Charles. He stopped near our table, eyes landing on me, sending a chill racing down my spine. "Claire," he addressed me directly, the smoothness of his voice sending alarm bells ringing in my chest. "I think it's time we had a different kind of conversation." "Is that a threat?" I shot back, surprising myself with the bite in my tone. My response seemed to ignite curiosity among bystanders, the surrounding chatter dying down as they turned their attention to the unfolding drama. Jack smirked, a glimmer of amusement dancing in his eyes. "Not at all. Consider this a proposal to explore the world you've encroached upon unwittingly, Claire," Olivia whispered, her grip tightening on my hand. "You don't have to engage with him. We can leave," but there was something within me that resisted flight. Perhaps it was a desperate yearning to protect Charles, or simply an insatiable curiosity that eclipsed my better judgment. "What do you want?" I managed to muster. "Our paths are inherently intertwined, and I'd like you to understand that." He leaned closer, lowering his voice just enough to evoke both fear and intrigue. "The danger isn't as simple as it seems." With that, he handed me a sleek card, embossed with initials that sent a thrill of dread coursing through me. I held it tightly, staring at the logo, a stark reminder of the worlds we crossed without truly knowing. It was an invitation into a realm that turns simple lives into shadows of something much darker. "That I hope to see you soon," he said before turning away, leaving a trail of uncertainty in his wake. The cafeteria buzzed back to life, but I remained frozen, my heart racing wildly as I registered the enormity of what had just occurred. "Claire," Olivia said softly, a note of trepidation creeping into her voice. "What are you going to do?" It was the question hovering over the precipice of my heart, and I knew that whichever path I chose, it would lead me deeper into an uncharted territory where love intertwined with danger. The weight of the card pressed into my palm like a ticking time bomb, a decision rippling just below the surface, waiting for the moment I might break through that fragile line that separated the safety of my heart from the abyss that loomed beyond, and then, like thunder following a flash of lightning, it hit me. Perhaps in the pursuit of answers, I had inadvertently signed up for a reckoning that would not only shake my foundations but challenge everything I thought I understood about love, loyalty, and the darkness that lurked within both. The hallways felt tighter as I walked with Olivia after the unsettling encounter with Jack. Each step echoed with uncertainty, a rhythmic reminder of the precarious balance I was beginning to tread. My thoughts were a dissonant symphony, the card in my pocket a constant reminder of the abyss I was being pulled toward. What if he knows more? I mused aloud, my brow furrowing as I replayed Jack's words in my head. What if Charles is in deeper than I thought? Olivia glanced at me, concern etched across her features. Well, figure it out together, Claire. Remember what I said. You're not alone in this. Her confidence was a lifeline in a sea of despair, yet the shadows cast by Jack's words threatened to pull me underwater. As we exited the school building, the crisp air greeted us, a stark contrast to the oppressive weight of my thoughts. Just nearby, kids were gathering around a table laden with brightly colored cupcakes. One of the boys, Brian, was enthusiastically explaining how they were fundraising for the local shelter. I recalled how Brian was quiet and occasionally awkward but genuinely kind underneath. His unassuming presence reminded me that there were still pockets of goodness amidst the chaos I was navigating. "Hey, Claire. Olivia," he called out, spotting us. "We're trying to raise hope, one cupcake at a time. Want some? If you have a chocolate one, I'm in," I replied, my spirits lifting slightly despite the storm brewing inside me. "Chocolate it is." He handed me a cupcake, picking up a white powdered one for himself. "These are for a good cause. Every purchase goes to help the families in need." I took a bite, letting the sweetness momentarily eclipse the turmoil swirling within. As the flavors danced on my palate, I caught Olivia's eye. There was a glimmer of something between USA's shared understanding that amid the chaos, there could still be small joys, moments of grace. "Thanks, Brian," I said, savoring the simple act of kindness. It was these tiny gestures that reminded me of the warmth still present in the world. "Anytime. And hey, if you need some extra hands for your dance tomorrow, let me know," he encouraged, flashing a brilliant smile. The thought of dancing felt distant, almost futile, but the weight of Brian's optimism was a soothing balm to my frayed nerves. We continued on, and my thoughts wandered back to Jack's proposition. The very idea of engaging him gnawed at me. How could I possibly delve deeper into a world that could hurt Charles? Yet, was there any other choice if it meant safeguarding him from the shadows that loomed? As we reached Olivia's car, a figure emerged from the parking lot, raising an alarm in my heart. It was Charles. He was standing beside his motorcycle, hands shoved deep in his pockets, a look of contemplation on his face that was deeply familiar and deeply troubling. "Hey, I'll catch up with you later, okay?" I said abruptly, instinctively stepping away from the safety of Olivia's side. "Claire." Olivia called, but I was already crossing the asphalt, anxiety surging with each step toward him. "Charles." I approached hesitantly, noting the tension wrapped around him like a cloak. He looked different than usual, almost pained. "Hey," he greeted, his voice low and strained. "I've been trying to reach you." "I got your letter," I said cautiously, searching his expression for answers. "Did you know about Jack?" A flicker passed through his eyes, and I felt the air thicken with unsaid words. "I didn't think he'd approach you." "It's complicated, Claire. I can't explain everything now." My heart sunk. "You should have told me sooner. This is getting dangerous, Charles." I can't just ignore it. He stepped closer, his hand brushing against mine, igniting a spark of something warm yet electrifying. Trust me. But there are things I need to protect you from. I was going to keep you out of it. Protect me? By pulling away? I retorted, hurt laced in my words. You're placing me in more danger by keeping me in the dark. Just then, the shout of a nearby student pierced the air, causing us to turn abruptly. It was Jack, leaning against his car, a knowing smirk plastered across his face. Ah, lovebirds. So nice to see you sharing secrets. My heart raced as I caught Charla's seething glare towards him, an unexpected knowledge passing between them that sent chills scrambling down my spine. Stay out of this, Jack, Charles said, his tone low and dangerous. Jack shrugged nonchalantly, his gaze fixated on me. You're the one who's decided to dive in, Claire. Just remember, not everything is what it seems. Or who? With a last lingering glance that twisted my gut, Jack climbed into his car and drove off, leaving a trail of uncertainty behind him. Charla's hand tightened around mine, but I pulled away. You need to tell me the truth, I insisted, feeling desperation knotting in my chest. Why is he following us? What do you know? I can't, Claire, he started, but the panic in my eyes must have resonated. Please, just trust me. Just stay away from Jack. What if I can't? My words hung suspended between us, heavy and accusing. In that moment, as confusion flooded my mind, I watched something shift in Charles' expression. For the first time, his facade cracked, revealing a glimpse of his own fears, the very darkness I was terrified to confront. Claire, you need to get ready for the dance, he said softly, the urgency in his voice underscored by an unshakable plea. We'll talk more. I promise. He stepped back, and I stood frozen, my breath halting as an overwhelming tide of emotion crashed over me. The chasm wasn't just between him and me anymore, it was expanding with an unknowable depth that pulled everything I thought I understood into question. Promise, I echoed, but my heart sank as I realized I didn't know whether his promise could shield me from the growing storm. And just like that, I felt the world slipping beneath my feet, caught between trust and fear, love and danger, not knowing which path I would ultimately have to take to learn the truth or whether my heart would withstand the tumult that awaited. The daylight faded, casting long shadows that danced ominously on the pavement as I watched Charles retreat, the tension still humming in the air between us. A wave of despair washed over me, mingling dread with a flicker of defiance. How was I supposed to prepare for the dance when the words I needed to hear from him were trapped in an unspeakable darkness? I turned on my heel, the vibrant crowd in front of me a stark contrast to the turmoil in my heart. It felt surreal, to witness laughter and light while I was drowning in uncertainty. The noise of students planning their evening flooded my senses, but all I could focus on was the tug-of-war between trust and betrayal. As I ambled back towards Olivia's car, lost in my turbulent thoughts, I noticed Brian still at the cupcake table. His laughter rang out like music, a calming balm for my frayed nerves, urging me to shake off the gloom. Maybe a few more moments of joy could ground me before plunging back into the chaos. Hey, Brian. I called, forcing a smile that felt too fragile for the weight on my heart. I stepped up, reaching for another chocolate cupcake, and this time, Brian handed me a small handwritten note. For you, he said, his eyes bright with excitement. I wrote down some inspirational quotes. Thought you might find them helpful before the dance. My heart swelled at his thoughtfulness. You're really sweet, Brian. Thank you. I opened the note, scanning through the words that spoke of courage and hope, reminders that the battle I faced wasn't mine alone. It was a small island of comfort in the sea of doubt I had been treading, but as I murmured my gratitude, an uneasy feeling gnawed at me. Jack's words echoed, wrapping around my mind like a vice. Not everything is what it seems. Or who? Did these sentiments stem from something deeper that I was oblivious to, or were they merely a chilling warning meant to unmoor me? The idea of Jack being wherever I was tightened the grip of anxiety around my chest. He was a ghost haunting the edges of my life, a reminder of unresolved struggles left to fester in the dark. As I returned to the car, Olivia regarded me with a look of concern. Are you okay, Claire? You look a little off. It's nothing, I said, but even as I spoke the words, I felt their emptiness. Just sorting through everything, you know. You don't have to carry this alone. Not with everything that's happening. Her voice was steady, but I could see shadows in her eyes, a reflection of my own fears. That we climbed into the car, the silence stretching between us as she switched on the radio, filling the air with a soft tune. It washed over me, easing some of the tension, reminding me of the smallness of my worries in the grander tapestry of life. Yet still, the specter of Jack loomed over us, gnawing at the edges of my awareness. Claire, you know you have friends who care about you, right? Olivia's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. You don't have to go through this alone. Whatever it is, I get it, Olivia. I snapped, the words tumbling out before I could catch them. The moment they left my lips, I felt a wave of guilt crash over me. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to raise my voice. I just feel like everything's out of control. It's okay, she said gently, her expression softening. But remember, you can talk to me. Don't hesitate to lean on me if you're feeling overwhelmed. That I forced a smile, gratitude mingling with the burden I was carrying. Olivia's kindness was a steady flame amid the encroaching darkness, but the shadows still loomed large, refusing to recede. As we reached my house, an unexpected thought pierced through my turmoil. What if I confronted Jack? What if I turned the tables and demanded answers for the tangled threads weaving through our lives? But the trepidation that accompanied that idea cast a long shadow over my resolve. Would it lead to safety or spiral into further danger? Inside, the familiar scent of dinner wafted through the air, but even the warmth of home did little to soothe the anxiety curling in my gut. I sat at the table, the food laid out before me, an illusion of normalcy. But my mind wasn't present. It floated between impending chaos and the heartbeat of uncertainty, an insistent reminder that my world was on the precipice of change. Then, the moment of realization crashed down on me. My mother, seated opposite me, casually laid down her fork. I got a call today. Hope flared momentarily at the unexpected breaking of routine, but dread soon followed as I noticed the serious look in her eyes. That I think we need to talk about Charles. My stomach twisted as every ounce of air left my lungs. Was she aware of my entanglements? Had Jack's taunts reached her ears? I stared at her, the world spinning and tilting sideways, uncertain what venomous truth lurked behind her words. Mom, what did you hear? The voice in my head screamed for clarity, urging me to unravel the threads before the web ensnared me further. I leaned forward, urgency flooding my veins, but I sensed that this dialogue might lead to more than mere questions. It was a doorway, one that might expose family secrets intertwined with my own, threatening to unearth buried truths. In that fragile moment, everything I had carefully constructed began to feel like a house of cards teetering precariously on the edge of collapse. And beyond that edge lay the shadows of my reality, tangling further into the unknown. The air in the room thickened, a palpable tension settling over the dining table like an unwelcome guest. My mother's gaze bore into me, fierce and searching, as if she could pry the truth out of my very spirit. It was as if time had stalled, each tick of the clock hanging heavier than the last. What did you hear? I pressed again, nearly choking on the words, half afraid of what confession might tumble from my lips. The mask of stability I had worked so hard to maintain was slipping, and the dread of exposure clawed at my insides. Sweetheart, she started, her voice low and soft, if it's not what matters right now. What's important is that I'm worried about you, about your choices. Her expression was a mixture of concern and sadness, and it shattered the little resolve I had left. That I had always known that my mother, with her intuitive nature, could sense my hidden turmoil. Yet, the weight of her words pressed heavily, layering fear upon fear. Mom, I can handle it. I just need some time to figure it all out. I hated how insipid my response sounded, a flimsy shield against her earnest worry. Claire, this isn't just about time, she continued, her voice steadier now. It's about understanding what you're getting into. Charles. I need you to be cautious. Cautious? The word ignited a spark of indignation, but it faded just as quickly as it ignited, swallowed by my rising anxiety. Do you even know what you're asking? It's not just about him, it's everything that's happening. I feel trapped. The inadequacy of my situation crashed over me, engulfing me in a wave of desperation. Just then, my phone buzzed on the table, jolting me from the depths of my spiraling thoughts. I reached for it, my pulse quickening as I swiped to reveal a message from Olivia that I am here for you. Don't forget that. You're stronger than you think, Claire. Remember what we talked about. Her words, simple yet profound, provided a thread of connection to the outside world. Holding on to that spark, I looked back at my mother. I'm trying, I really am. But I need to deal with this my way, that's all I can ask, she replied, her voice softening. She reached across the table, the warmth of her hand enveloping me in an unbreakable bond that reminded me that I wasn't entirely alone. But even with her support, a void still lingered, a chilling acknowledgement that something monumental was unearthing itself. After dinner, I wandered to my room, the familiar comfort of my surroundings now feeling suffocating. The walls, adorned with memories and aspirations, stood as bittersweet reminders of who I used to be. As I sat on my bed, the silence swallowed me whole, and I cast a sideways glance toward the small, dusty box that housed secrets long buried beneath my childhood. That it began as an absent-minded gesture, but soon my curiosity overwhelmed me. I pulled the box close, my heart racing in tandem with the fluttering fear of what I might uncover. Inside, clippings, photographs, and letters from a past I longed to forget lay tangled together, telling stories of love and loss I had tucked away for self-preservation, and beneath a faded postcard, my fingers brushed against a slip of paper that felt foreign yet achingly familiar. The handwriting sent shivers down my spine. It was Jack's. That I know what you're afraid of, Claire. There are truths hidden deeper than you can grasp. You can't escape them. Not now, not ever. A chill cascaded through me, like ice water running down my spine. Had he always known? I was startled by the sinister implications and the grim realization that I had unleashed a darkness I couldn't control. Why had I kept this letter, and why had Jack's words lingered like a shadow in my mind? Suddenly, a loud knock jolted me back to reality. I quickly shoved the letter back into the box, shoving it under my bed just as my mother's voice called from the hallway. Claire, can we talk? I swallowed hard, the knot in my stomach tightening again as I slid off my bed. Okay, I called back, bracing myself. As I opened the door, my heart raced with anticipation, a sense of foreboding wrapping around my chest. My mother stood there, her countenance a mix of resolve and tenderness. I just received a phone call. It's about Jack. Those words collided through my mind like thunder, unraveling every fragile thread I had tried to weave into a semblance of understanding. In that moment, history threatened to repeat itself as I stared into her eyes, which mirrored my own agitation. I had tried so hard to detach myself from it all, but reality crashed back hard and unforgiving. What about him? I barely managed to whisper, my fear manifesting in a tremor of uncertainty. My mother hesitated, then exhaled slowly as if preparing for the worst, and I could see the flicker of dread in her eyes. He's back in town. The statement hung between us, a dark omen that named my greatest fear and hurled it back into my lap, reminding me I could run, but I would never be free. I felt as though the ground beneath me was giving way, each breath laboring under the weight of my mother's words. Jack was back. The very mention of his name sent icy tendrils of dread spiraling through my thoughts, conjuring memories that I had long tried to bury. What does that mean? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, fearing that asking would make it more real. It means we need to keep our guard up, she responded, her eyes piercing into mine. I don't want you to get dragged back into that world, Claire. You have so much potential, so many opportunities ahead of you. I could sense the unspoken fear that lay between us, the repercussions of Jack's return. But the fight ignited within me, a stubborn spark that begged for light. I want to find out what it means, I shot back, brushing aside her caution. I need to understand. She shook her head, a frown deepening the lines on her forehead. You don't understand. This isn't just about you or me. It's about Charles, too. He's entangled in something dangerous with Jack that could harm him and you. I could feel a wild hope flicker in my chest. Maybe this was my moment to confront the darkness that surrounded Charles, to draw lines in the sand and take my first real step into the unknown. I had watched others live recklessly, but I had never been brave enough to venture deep into the chaos myself. Until now, it seemed. Then he'll figure it out with him, I said resolutely. Claire, my mother, sighed, her frustration boiling over, but I held her gaze, waiting for her anger to subside. Promise me you'll be careful. I won't always be there to protect you, she pleaded, the weight of her worry palpable in the air. Promise. I offered, even though my heart trembled at the promise of what lay ahead. As my mother moved away with a resigned nod, I was left standing in the middle of my room, the delicate balance of hope and fear thrumming beneath my skin. I knew more than anything, whatever it took, I had to prepare for the storm ahead. Later that night, I sat at my desk, darkness cascading outside my window like a syrupy shadow. I pulled out a blank sheet of paper, my pen poised. I had always been a dreamer, filled with aspirations that swirled in brilliant colors within me. But now, I must confront the truth. How was I supposed to guide us through this labyrinth of danger surrounding Charles? The words flowed out, a rush of clarity amidst the confusion. I need strength, I need love, I need determination. I need to be the light in this dark world, whether for Charles or myself. As my thoughts poured forth on the page, the boundaries began to shift. Living in fear was no longer an option, and the shadows of yesterday couldn't chain me down. And so, I decided the moment I saw Charles again, would speak my truth. No more hiding, no more silence. The next day dragged as anticipation coursed through me, my mind racing with potential conversations, outcomes, and newfound resolutions. Finally, as lunch approached, I felt a heartbeat of urgency urging me toward the cafeteria, the epicenter of chaos but also the potential for something new to flourish. When I entered, the usual hum of laughter felt muted. My gaze quickly swept across the room, until it landed on him, Charles. He sat at our usual table, his expression burdened, eyes clouded with worry and unanswered questions. Yet, something sparked within me, this time, I wouldn't hesitate. Charles, I breathed, as I crossed the space separating us, the other students fading into mere silhouettes. We need to talk. His expression shifted, the clouds of hesitation giving way to a steady glimmer of resolve. Yes, he replied, his tone low and urgent, almost relieved. I've been waiting for you. Once seated together, the familiar pulses of anxiety surged, yet they felt different this time, tethered to a newfound strength simmering just beneath my skin. I don't want to hide anymore, I spoke, determination in my voice. I need to know what Jack's motives are. I need to understand the world you're involved in. He studied me, his brows knitting together in concern. Claire, this isn't just a story of good and evil. You could get hurt. I know the risks, I replied resolutely, the echo of my promise to my mother still wrapping around me. But I want to help you navigate this darkness. We can do this together. For a moment, silence enveloped us, a fragile space where our hearts beat in sync against the weight of unspoken fears. And then, slowly but surely, his hand reached out across the table. You don't know how much that means to me. And so, under the harsh fluorescent lights, the cafeteria faded into the background. In that moment, we reaffirmed the bond that had temporarily splintered, championing each other to confront a destiny lurking just beyond our grasp. But in that same heartbeat, a shadow passed our table. I turned just in time to see Jack smirking from across the cafeteria. You think you're always going to stay ahead, don't you, Claire? He taunted, a dark glint in his eyes that sent chills plunging through me. Leave us alone, Jack, Charles called out, firm and unyielding as darkness threatened to claw at its purging light. Why don't you try to contain your little piece of sunshine? Jack retorted, before subtler shadows caressed his features. But you should know, where I tread, darkness follows. That chilling sentiment hung heavy in the air, an unforgiving reminder of the precarious lines we now walk, a dance zeroing in on a crossroad where fear and tenacity collided. I turned back to Charles, fire flickering in my chest. Well, stand together in this, I proposed, standing firm in my stance. From here on out, we cannot let him dictate our lives. He nodded, his eyes catching the spark of defiance mirrored in mine as we crossed into the unknown, arm in arm toward whatever awaited USA life we would forge together, battling shadows hand in hand. And just like that, we affirmed the first step into uncharted waters. Each spark igniting hope that trailed behind us like galaxies igniting each night. Our moment swelled in resignation as I looked back at Jack, a dark horizon nearing, timelines shifting beneath our feet. As I turned back to Charles, I felt a warmth radiating around USA protective shield that surged with promise. Together, maybe we could change the narrative. Maybe we would find a way to blend shadows with light. And as we stepped into the unknown, it was clear that love, when ignited with empathy and truth, could conquer realms we dared not visit before. A bittersweet symphony singing to us, guiding our hearts unerringly through the storm that raged ahead. Whatever awaited us, we would face it together. A luminous bond forged through trials I had yet to understand. In that moment, I felt alive, ready and willing to wrestle the chaos within and around us, to find where we belonged, no matter the consequences. Because at the end of the tempest, every shadow would bow to the light of our chosen path. And in that embrace, I whispered a promise only the two of us could hear: together, we will rise.